This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
And welcome to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, game didn't go exactly like we thought it would on Saturday.
No, it went pretty terribly.
Pretty terribly. Just kind of it was the Ravens who came out and kind of, we talked about it last week. It was that Spider-Man meme. I know what you're going to do, and you look like me, and I look like all that stuff. And Lamar Jackson hadn't run the ball that much against the Steelers.
No.
And he came in and ran the ball, I think 5 consecutive plays on the opening drive of that game. Now, it wasn't 5 plays for big yardage.
Right.
But it was 5 consecutive plays to convert first downs, and it just continued from there. And the Steelers couldn't stop it. They couldn't stop Derrick Henry, and they lost 28-14.
Yeah, and the Jackson runs became pretty obvious. Your edge guy, whether it's Watt or Highsmith, it seemed like mostly they were going more to Watt's side, but whatever. Watt isn't interested in Lamar at all. He is crashing down the line of scrimmage, parallel.
And that was a defensive plan. Usually,
he's doing his job.
That's where the Steelers zagged instead of
right.
Okay, TJ, you got the running back in these situations.
Right.
It used to be TJ, you've got Lamar in these situations.
I think Lamar's eyes opened this big and said, if I'm gonna watch TJ run right across my face, and I've got a handful of yards to make anyone on the planet miss, I'm doing that over and over and over.
Yeah.
And frankly, the Steelers didn't play with a lot of energy, and they were the weaker team. And they were obviously the weaker team, especially in the first half, against what I think is an awesome offense. And I think the Ravens might win the Super Bowl. But when Lamar became very aware of how the Steelers were playing it makes it really tough. And there's more to that.
Then when they didn't play it that way, they just handed it to Henry.
Yeah, exactly. That they guessed right, but they were always right. And, if you're going to play it that way, where I'm just using Watt as an example. He didn't do anything wrong, but he comes crashing down the line of scrimmage. Well, Queen or your Phil guy has to scrape over knowing that and they were always slow to it.
Well, we found out today, Ian Rappaport reporting that Patrick Queen had to get 4 bags of IV fluids.
I heard, right.
Going into that game.
100% added up.
Yeah.
100%
just
added
a
up.
step slow in that game.
Yeah, again, flat-footed, worn out. Yeah,
he looked. I saw him after the game, and he looked like he was exhausted, and I had no idea that was the case at that time. And now it kind of adds up.
It really adds up. Because there were a handful of plays. I'm not saying he's dogging it, but he barely moved. It was a couple steps here and there. Playing with nothing in the tank.
Yeah. And so the
Brutal
Steelers,
game, right?
The Steelers lose 28-14. That was a defensive side of things. Offensively, there just wasn't. I didn't see the fight offensively in the first half either.
Mm-hmm.
Guys weren't breaking tackles. Guys weren't fighting for first downs. I texted you every time yesterday when I saw that in those games.
When a tight end would run over a defensive back?
A tight end would run a quarterback.
My phone lit up quite a few times.
A quarterback would run over a defensive back.
Yeah.
A running back would run. It just constant yesterday. I had to have texted you 5 or 6 times like, look at that. Look at that.
Right.
And it didn't happen
playoff
for the
football.
Steelers. It's playoff football.
You're big and bruising, inflict pain. Henry did to Minka.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is what it's all about at this time.
Well, and that's the thing. When you look at this Ravens offense, coming into this game, we talked about it last week. You had to know that they were going to lean on Henry.
Sure.
If you let them do it. They didn't have the receivers. They didn't have
No.
And why the Steelers didn't have Joey Porter Jr. travel with Bateman is beyond me.
It's beyond me. And frankly, to take a step further, this added up. I didn't know it until actually reading it today. The Ravens were an 11% of the time. An ungodly low number, like the lowest number in the last 5 years of any playoff team. Now, we saw that coming. They don't have good receivers and their best guys out. And they got a bunch of big dudes. They had a 6th offensive lineman on the field 22% of the time. And that's not even counting Ricard as a 6th offensive lineman, who's really a 7th offensive lineman. And the Steelers still play nickel a lot. Over 50% of their snaps were in nickel. You could be the best schemed up team in the league. You just got little people playing against big people.
Well, that's the thing. So, I mean, I understand being concerned that you have to have enough people on the field that can run with Lamar Jackson.
I get that, right.
And that's what the Chargers did to them in Jackson's first playoff game, is they went with 7 defensive backs.
They had a bunch of Derwin James out there, right, just flooding the middle of the field and being fast.
The problem becomes
now they got Henry.
Those guys having to tackle Henry.
Right. Now, Henry has done – I saw this today too, that December and beyond in his career is by far the best of any back in NFL history. I mean, it's remarkably good. Every playoff game he's in,
he's a hammer.
He's over 150 yards repeatedly, the most in history in the playoffs.
He's got 4 of them, yeah.
Yeah, and Terrell Davis is the only one that's even like close to him, and they're not the same. I mean, and he does this to everybody. He gets stronger. Defenses just get weaker throughout the course of the year. Attrition. It's harder to tackle big people in the cold. And so much of his yards were after first contact in this game that he's a pretty remarkable specimen. And when you match him with Lamar, I mean, the thunder and lightning that they provide is rare in NFL history. But you knew that who you're playing against. Right.
That being said, I thought the backbreaker, you're down 14-0 late in the half. First of all, you had to play to Pickens down the sideline that would have made it. You would have had the ball to 7, down 14-0 at that point.
I give Pickens credit; he played a whale of a game.
Yeah. I thought Humphreys sold the pass interference call, and
probably going to get called more often than not was my thought, but it was borderline.
Borderline, but he pushed off a little bit. But show me a receiver that doesn't down the field. I thought Humphrey did a great job of selling it. It happened. It is what it is. The Ravens go the length of the field, but they used all their timeouts. They get the ball with 11 seconds left.
Yeah.
At the 5. The Steelers have Lamar Jackson hemmed in the pocket. They've got hands on him. I think Herbig had him, and he escapes and throws a touchdown pass with 2 seconds left in the first half, and now it's 21-0.
His time to throw on that play was like 6.3 seconds or something.
Harbaugh talked about it after the game. He's like, because they had no timeouts left.
Oh, right.
If he's tackled in the field of play, that's it. It's 14-0 at the half, and if you're the Steelers, are going, all right, we just got badly outplayed in the first half, but it's only 2 scores. As we saw in the Houston game.
The only thing he can't do is take a sack.
Yeah.
And they're beating blockers left and right, but making him get a sack.
Nobody got him on the ground.
Right. Superhero.
And to me, that was just such a backbreaker because you had what you want. You had the pass rush on him. Even if
he cover for 6 seconds.
If he scrambles in that situation, there were guys waiting there. He was probably going to get tackled short of the goal line.
Right.
And he flips the ball out to the flat, and Hill goes in from.
He's one of the only people on the planet that can make that play.
Sometimes you just have to tip your. I mean, the other guys get paid too.
Yeah,
and I thought
their guys are really good.
There were some plays that Jackson made that I thought, well, there's only about 2 guys on the face of the earth that can make that particular play. The other one is a killer. They get the sack for some reason. The Steelers make it 28-14.
They're showing some life.
They're back in the game.
They're at least head above water. Right.
They're back in the football game.
Bit, right.
They come out, they get a sack on the Ravens don't even have Henry on the field to open that next drive. They didn't put him on the field that entire possession, and they go 3 and out. They get the sack. The Steelers get the sack on first down. This was the open third quarter. I'm getting it.
No, it's the beginning of the half, right?
Yeah. They get the sack on first down. It's now 2nd and 21. And they roll Jackson out to his right. They had Ricard just completely. He just all right, let Watt come in, and then just sealed him off to the inside because they knew they were rolling to the right. He runs all the way across the field. Nobody open, and then throws back to the middle of the field. Yeah. I think it was Aguilar that caught that one for a 22-yard gain. He caught it short of the sticks and goes out. Maybe it was Tylan Wallace. Either one, it doesn't matter. He threw about a 16-yard pass, and he ends up getting just enough. He gets 21 yards on that, or 22 yards to convert the first down. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, their guys are just getting past the line to gain, and the Steelers guys didn't all day long.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to call him out. Well, Freiermuth was the perfect example of that. You got a little guy in front of you, run him over.
Two instances in the first half where
and he dropped the first play of the game.
The first two series that the Steelers had the ball.
Yeah.
Now the first one was 4th and long, and he caught it, and he had to get, I think, 7 or 8 yards, and he came up 2 yards short. He got gang tackled on that one. But you got it. The second one, he catches the ball in the flat. It's 3rd and 2.
Yeah.
And all he has to do is get past 180-pound Darius Washington.
Yeah, right. You're a tight end. You're
250 pounds.
Big person,
that
right?
guy's 5'9" and 180 pounds, and you let him get you on the ground short of the sticks.
In a play you have to have.
You got to have it.
Yeah.
And
everything gets magnified, especially physicality in the playoffs, especially Ravens Steelers. And you got to be the hammer there. You can't come up short. And there was too many of those instances on both sides of the ball. There's. Again, it's just this is a really good football team, a really physical football team, but I would have liked to seen more fight. Not that they laid down; it's just they went backwards way too often. The Powell fell the other way.
Yeah, they had no running game.
No running game.
They gained 29 yards on 11 carries.
29 yards versus 299.
Yeah, you won't see a bigger difference in that. And honestly, I mean, if you look at what Russell Wilson did in this game, he was 20 of 29. Mm-hmm. 4 of those 29 were throwaways.
Yeah, I saw that in your article.
He had 20. He was 20 of 25 when he was actually given time to throw and got the ball down the field when they attacked. And I didn't think they attacked enough early.
I don't either. And again, there's so much Monday morning quarterbacking involved. But I bet if Tomlin or Arthur Smith or whatever were sitting here and said, let's do it again. You know what you know now. I think you put the ball in Russ's hands more.
That's what you brought him here for.
Yeah. And frankly, I thought Pickens, leading up to the game, I said many times, the Steelers have any chance, Pickens needs to be one of the best players on the field. And I thought he was. And I actually made some notes in the third quarter. I'm like, I might throw it to Pickens every time and just see what happens. You know, I mean, I know the Austin play was desperation. But watching it on TV, he threw into triple coverage to a really small receiver in the end zone. Frankly, he didn't have much choice. But you could hardly even see Austin because there was so much purple around him. You know what I mean? You got one dude that's a supreme playmaker that was playing well. I almost felt at that point, just give him the ball every time and see what happens because he's an immensely talented player.
The Ravens knew that as well. And he was getting doubled
all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. But again, they had chunk pass plays. The play that Austin made that's on 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 10 from the 3 on their first touchdown drive was that's a big time catch.
Yeah,
it's a big time throw over the middle where everybody says Russell Wilson can't throw. I mean, he stuck that into a tight spot for a big gain. He then comes out, hits Mike Williams down the sideline. These were all on third and long plays too.
Right.
And then hits Van Jefferson for the touchdown on 3rd and long for a 30-yard touchdown pass.
I think you cited in your article, but he had 5 or 6 between 25 and 35-yard catches. I mean, they're chunk plays.
All we heard, the Ravens have fixed their issues with the deep ball. Well, that would suggest that maybe they didn't. Mm-hmm. Teams just weren't trying it, and you don't know until you know.
Yeah,
I would have tried that earlier.
Yeah, and again, they weren't on the field a whole heck of a lot. I mean, that's obviously
you have to convert some of those first downs,
right? I mean, a lot of. Frankly, over the last 5 games, a lot of our Monday morning quarterback, or I would have done this more on offense, I'd done that more on offense. But then it's but they only ran 10 plays in the first. I mean, you got to run plays
stay on
to
the
do
field.
These things, right?
Got to stay on the field. Guys got to fight for first downs.
Yeah.
And,
I was talking with Wolf and Rob. We do it'll air tonight, Monday night, about, the time of possession thing. It seems like every Monday we've been talking about time of possession, in the post-game shows with those two. And in these 5 games, there's been 300 minutes of football. And the Steelers have had the football for 121 of those 300 minutes. But to me, that's the symptom. That's not the disease. You go to the doctor saying, Doc, my time of possession's all messed up. My arm hurts, my chest hurts, whatever. And Doc does all the tests and says, well, these are your problems. Well, the problems are on both sides of the ball. You got to get that time of possession back and run more plays. But it's not just because you haven't run the ball well enough or you're giving up too much on the run. It's all the above, and it just leads to bad time possession, which, as we know, just snowballs and gets bigger and bigger and bigger down the hill.
I got some stats. I looked some things up today. I had some thoughts as I was watching all the games take place here over the weekend.
Yeah.
This will be without the Monday night game, playoff game that will finish off the wild card weekend. But I got some stats that I want to dig into that speak to what you just talked about there. And we'll do that when we return. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with more right after this. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, during the game yesterday, or after the AFC game, when all the AFC games were completed,
the first three.
I tweeted out, and I just did this for comparisons purposes, and people thought, "Oh, you're making excuses for the Steelers." No, I wasn't at all. If you read my 10 thoughts after the game, I was pretty blunt. They get their butts kicked.
Mm-hmm.
But I said the AFC games were not competitive.
No.
And here's how non-competitive they were. The Steelers game was the closest of the three.
Right.
And the Steelers,
that's funny. Right?
And the Steelers scored the most points and gave up the fewest points of the AFC team. It was bad. And so
I would say that the Steelers is bad. Their first half might have been the worst of any of the, but at least at one point semi-late in the game, it was still a game.
Yeah.
I mean, Denver, Buffalo wasn't at that point. Deep into the third quarter, you at least had your head above water. But you're right. It was 3 very lopsided games. But go.
So it made me look up today, just the first round of the playoffs, not excluding tonight's game thus far. We've seen only one lower-seeded team win, that being Washington against Tampa. Not that,
Right, they're not a powerhouse, right.
All right, so Houston had 429 yards of offense.
Okay.
Remember, they did nothing in the first quarter of that game.
No, and they had 3 turnovers in that game too, right?
Yeah. They turned the ball over 3 times. They ran 70 plays.
Houston did.
To 54 for L.A. Baltimore had 464 yards of offense. They ran 72 plays compared to 45 for the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo had 471 yards of offense. They had 72 plays. Denver had 42.
Wow. So these are like 30 play discrepancies.
30 plays.
Right.
Now, Philadelphia, Green Bay was a little bit different because Philly was just...
Both those defenses played well, yeah.
And Green Bay turned the ball over 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia had none.
Right.
You lose the turnover battle 4-0, you're going to lose.
Yeah, and Philly never really did much through the air or had to.
Washington last night. Now, mind you, Washington only had 82 rushing yards in that game.
Okay, including Jaden Daniels, right?
Yeah. They ran 69 plays. Tampa ran 44.
Wow.
So...
And obviously time of possession is going to reflect on this, and that's how we ended last segment. Right?
Time of possession. Houston had the ball for 34-25. Baltimore had it 39-33. Buffalo had it for 41 minutes and 43, almost 42 minutes. Denver didn't even have – they had 18 minutes and 17 seconds in time of possession.
And Denver scored on the first drive.
And they scored on the first drive on a big play.
After that, I mean, wow.
Philly won the time of possession 30 minutes and 33 seconds. Even though they got outgained in the game, they controlled the game. Washington had it for 35.
And you said it right. They controlled the game.
Yeah.
Philly. I mean, the numbers might not reflect it, but they controlled the game.
Washington had it for 35-26.
Wow. I mean, it's massively important. And I think the later and later you get in the season, it becomes more and more important. And there was a time when the Steelers were 10-3. They were number 1 in time of possession. I mean, they're capable of being that team as well. Now you got to do it against the top tier teams.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The averages for the first 5 playoff games, these are the averages.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some outliers, and this is still the average. The average winning team held the ball for 37 minutes.
Wow, it's a ton.
The average winning team had 400.8 yards of total offense. The losing team had 270.2.
Wow.
The average winning team averaged 5.9 yards per play. The losers had 5.5. The average winning team ran 68 plays. The average losing team 49.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
You can't ask any. I don't care.
Right.
Denver's defense is good. Green Bay's defense is good, but you can't continually ask your defense to go out there.
Can't.
You have to be able to perform offensively over the course of the game. You just have to.
That's during this 5-game losing streak out of 300 minutes, They've been on the field for like 122. The Steelers. It's a losing proposition all day long. Times 1,000.
Of the teams that lost yesterday and Saturday, Tampa averaged 6.5 yards per play.
Okay.
If you look at it, Washington averaged 5.1.
Mm-hmm.
The Steelers averaged 6.2 yards per play.
Yeah. They had some chunks, like we mentioned.
Baltimore was at 6.4. It's not like they were totally, but
right.
Baltimore was able to continually.
But they just ran more of them.
Yeah, but
right.
because they were able to get those first downs.
Right.
Some of the other ones, they're not. Houston was at 6.1 yards per play. LA was at 4.8.
I'm sure Buffalo had a big jump too. I mean, they won by 1 million.
Again, Philly won that game because they turned Green Bay over 4 times, including on the opening kickoff. That's just a killer.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a blowout from that point.
But the winning teams turned the ball over 3 times. The losers turned it over 9. And all 3 of the turnovers for the winning teams were by Houston.
Yeah, I say Houston had a bunch. Okay.
Early.
Yeah, okay.
Early. None of the other winning teams turned the ball over. So when you talk about turnovers mattering,
it's tried
it's
and
huge.
true year after year, decade after decade, right? And especially, I'll say this all week, everything gets magnified in the playoffs. I mean, if you think it's a trend in the regular season, multiply it times 1,000 in the playoffs because you can't get away with, you turned the ball over a couple times against the Raiders. The Chiefs can do that. The Steelers can do that. I mean, but you can't do that against the Bills and Ravens and Texans, et cetera, et cetera.
It's going to get So, I mean, the Steelers in Denver didn't turn the ball over.
Right.
In those games. They just didn't have the football.
Didn't have the football and didn't produce first downs. And
they didn't produce enough first downs.
Right. And stop the opponent from doing the same. Just plays run.
I think the Ravens in the first half of that game were 7 of 8 on third downs.
Yeah, they were. Miraculous.
Because you have Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
And, okay, it's 3rd and 2. Well, we need 2 yards. Lamar, go get us 2 yards.
Mm-hmm. Or even just Eagle tush push, or saw a lot of tight ends taking snaps and getting that 1 yard, the things like that. Just keep the chains moving, make them play at least 3 more plays, and that's another minute and a half or whatever. That's
your defense is standing on you.
A long time in the middle of January.
I am now of the belief, 100%, that playing defense, particularly in the playoffs, is all about playing less defense.
Less defense.
100%.
100%. However you have to get there, you have to play less defense.
Yeah.
Have to.
So your offense has to be one that moves the chains.
Mm-hmm. And especially in the playoffs, from a defensive standpoint, because there's Mahomes and there's Allen, and maybe Stroud's not at that level, but all the quarterbacks are good. You're not going to run into too many Rudolphs in the play. I mean, there aren't many that those guys, if you're on the field, they're going to figure you out.
Yeah. And even at that, like I mentioned, and I got my plays confused. The Steelers cut the score to 28-14 late in the third quarter. So they're in the game. It's 28-14.
Yeah. They're alive.
They're alive.
Yeah.
The Ravens come out and they don't have Henry on the field and call 3 consecutive passing plays.
Mm-hmm. Even though they're running well.
They're running the ball well. Now, Lamar scrambled for 6 yards on one of them, but it was a pass play.
Yeah. I mean, there's always that trump card too.
And I'm thinking, what are they doing here? This is, and so they end up punting, and the Steelers get the ball back at I think it was at around their own 40, and I'm like, they just made this a ball game by doing that.
Yeah, it's almost like you have Shaq, and it's me guarding Shaq, and he's just dunking on my head. And then you decide the next possession.
We're going to chuck up 4 threes in a row.
Right. Like, give it to the big guy. Right, yeah.
Yeah. So that to me is, okay, the Steelers found a way to get off the field. Get your offense back on the field. The Steelers, I think they gave up a sack on that one on second down. Yeah. Okay. That, they got a first down and then gave up the second down sack, and it put them, too far, and they had to end up having to punt the ball back again. It's just, you have to, the offense and defense have to work hand in hand. I mean, it really.
It's a team game. It's 11 guys on the field, and they have to complement one another, and you can't be super heavy one way or the other. Not this, either unit was great for the Steelers, but you're right. I mean, I just think during this 5-game losing streak against playoff caliber teams, you really see it. Like there were games, the offense played pretty well in that game, or defense played really well in that game. it wasn't a total team effort, and you end up losing time possession over and over and over. And again, it's a symptom. How do I fix my time of possession? Well, your right guard blocks better, and your nose tackle's stouter. Blah 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 blah. But in the end, that needs fixed. I mean, to beat the good teams.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
And I just look at the some of the especially in the AFC, the quarterback's still standing. Mahomes.
That's
Jackson,
where I want to go next.
Allen.
Yeah. So this is disheartening, but the Steelers got eliminated by Lamar, by Allen, and by Mahomes the last 3 years. And frankly, that's probably going to keep up because they're unbelievably good.
The only teams that have beaten those guys are each other for the most part.
And I'll throw Burrow in there too because I think he's the only quarterback on the planet that's as good as those three. There's 4 elite quarterbacks. And I was joking on a different show. It's almost like having Bo Jackson in Tecmo Bowl. Like it's such a quarterback-driven league. It's such a advantage over everyone you play when you have a superhero at that position, and defenses they get figured out. And these 4 are historic type quarterbacks all at once, all in the frickin' AFC, 2 of them in the division. You're going to have to figure out a new way of playing football to compete with those guys in the playoffs. They're remarkably good. And along those lines, just in the AFC, with respect to Houston's win, I bet it plays out like this, that there's 3 big dogs in the AFC. 2 of them wiped the floor with Denver and beat the Steelers pretty bad. Houston might go on to change my mind. I just think they played They just didn't play.
They played a team that turned it over 4 times.
If Houston would have played Baltimore or Buffalo,
they would have gotten beat
City,
just as badly.
We'd be talking about them too. I mean, they just happened to not play one of the powerhouses.
Well, and we talked about the Steelers' best path to victory was to play Houston in the first round of the playoffs.
And I would have picked them to win that game. I mean, I might pick them to win if they played today.
No, I thought that they would give the Ravens more of a game.
Of course. Right. We thought that was going to be a close game. But I do think when we look back at the history of the AFC in the 2024 season, we're going to say there's 3 powerhouses, and Kansas City's going to mop the floor with Houston. And fortunately for them, they're only going to have to play one of them. Baltimore and Buffalo are going to have to play 2 of them to get to the Super Bowl. And that's the difference of seeding. And those 3 teams are really, really good, led by elite quarterbacks. And elite's a big word.
I think they're really, really good because of the quarterbacks.
Me too.
I mean, I think if you took any of those quarterbacks and put them with this Steelers roster,
it might be the best team in the league.
Yeah.
100% believe that. And I like the Steelers roster. I like the Steelers makeup. But I might rather be the Bengals just because it's so hard to find that guy. I might give – I was talking to my buddy Peacock talking about the Niners. He's like, I might trade – I might not – he's gone on a rant with the Niners. He's like, I don't think I want to pay Purdy. I want to trade Bosa, all these dudes, and maybe get the next stud quarterback because that's kind of like the only way to win it all in this league.
The problem is there's not that stud quarterback in this draft.
This year it can't be.
It's not that.
That's how I countered. I'm like, it's great to be bad the year Burrow, Herbert, Tua, Hurts, Love comes out. And maybe only one of them turns out to be elite, but at least you have a crack. It's great to be the year Rivers, Ben, Eli comes out.
Yeah.
Be bad the right year. I mean, it's not just tank. Now, maybe next year it's great. This year doesn't look like it. That's for sure. Or even to be bad this last year. I like the chances of someone out of Williams, May, Jaden Daniels, Penix, etc., maybe being the next one in that group, but so much of it's just luck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, tanking just to tank, and we're going to tank and go get a quarterback. We better have a pretty damn good idea, right, of who that quarterback's going to be, and tanking. It doesn't guarantee you of anything.
It can be a disease,
right?
I mean, it can ruin the walls, that you painted so pretty.
It also becomes a situation. Okay, we won 3 games. Somebody else won 2.
Yeah, or we lost, but the one we won.
You can't control what everybody else is doing too.
There's some miserable teams out there.
Look at how many times the number 1 overall pick in the draft this year changed hands, about 4 times in the last month of the season?
Yeah, yeah.
Because there was a lot of bad out there.
Right. I mean, it looked like Carolina was on pace to not win a game all year. Well, then their quarterback played okay, and they're not even close to having the first pick. Like the Saints are a good example to me. Like they've maxed out their credit cards. They've went to a team like that. I would quote tank. Cameron Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu, Davis, Carr. Thank you for your service, Kamara. But we just need draft picks. And maybe we'll even start Spencer Rattler next year and end up with Arch Manning or whatever. You know what I mean? Maybe, But, man, that's a dangerous slope too, But there's
no guarantee you get him.
That's the thing. You could be the worst team in the league and not the first
if you're number 2,
yeah,
somebody else can still trade ahead of you and take that quarterback. Or the team that's takes the quarterback. You're guaranteed a nothing.
Nothing. It's a brutal world. Now, there are some examples, Allen and Mahomes weren't the first pick in the draft.
Nor was Jackson.
Right. So it doesn't mean – it bothers me a little bit. Steelers are stuck in purgatory. They have no chance to ever get their next guy. I'm like, well, Lamar went 31st. The Chiefs moved up 6 spots to get Mahomes
moved up
or whatever.
6. They went up from 27.
Was it 27? I was thinking they were like
the
22-ish.
Bills. I think the Bills was more like a –
They moved up for Allen too.
Yeah,
but I know KC was a playoff team.
Yeah.
They weren't a powerhouse, but they were a playoff team. There's one you love. It doesn't look like this draft's that one to do it. But this is a conversation probably from a year from now.
Yeah.
There's other avenues to get that guy.
The only guy who intrigues me in this draft, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about this, but the only guy who intrigues me about what he might be in this draft is Jalen Milroe.
Because he could be that.
Because he could be that next
guy
in that Lamar, Jaden Daniels type guy.
Yeah.
But again, that's what Indianapolis was trying to get when they went out and traded it up to get Richardson, and he hasn't been that.
No.
There's no guarantee.
No guarantee. But I definitely think, and it won't be this year probably, well, maybe it is Milroe, who knows, that you and I think the duration we do, or at least the next couple years, talking drafts, Steelers or not, and I've felt this way for a couple years, I'm Dave Kingman at the plate. I mean, I don't need a single. I don't need a double. I am swinging as hard as I can, and if I strike out 6 times in a row on the Richardsons of the world that don't make it, and I get one Allen, I win.
That's why
that's the only way to win this league.
I'm never going to kill the Steelers for taking Kenny Pickett at 20. At 20. You didn't trade up to go get him.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't make a move. You didn't mortgage your future to use a draft pick to take a quarterback in the first round.
And you got out of it in a year or two.
And you got out of it quickly enough that okay, we're going to pivot and go. So you didn't try to
it's not trading up for
4 years down the line. We're going to keep trying to make this work. No.
Right.
That's going to be the situation Indianapolis finds itself in. For example, just using them as example, like, are they going to run it back again with Richardson next year?
Probably one more year.
He completed 47% of his passes this year.
Right. But
he actually regressed.
But that was Josh Allen his rookie year.
I understand.
You know what I mean?
Allen didn't regress.
No, that's the thing. Right. I guess that was year 2 for Richardson. But Allen was a bad player in his rookie year.
He was not the guy that he is now,
right.
But they put pieces around him.
Right.
That's the other thing that you have to have in place is pieces.
But I like your Milroe thought. Like, if he has a high metachlorine count.
Yes.
He could be a Jedi. He could. And maybe it doesn't work. But he's got, he has the traits.
He passes the eye test of the traits that you're looking for.
Right. That he could be a special player that's almost impossible to defend.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of them walking the planet right now. Unfortunately, 2 of them are in the division.
Right. And, can Justin Fields be that? I thought so when he came out in the draft.
Yeah.
I thought he might be that kind of player. I loved him.
He hasn't proven to be.
But he hasn't proven to be that in terms of.
The book's not 100% written, but there's some chapters written.
Yeah.
100%.
Now, maybe you have a better idea that, okay, he's sat and he's learned behind. Mm-hmm. Say what you want about Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's a pro.
Right.
He handles.
That's the beauty of him. That's why we wanted to make the change, and I condone that. Yeah. Right.
And he's been that guy who can be, to steal from your analogy there, he can be your Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
To Justin Fields, young Padawan.
Maybe he can't be Vader, but he could be a real solid Jedi for you.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's going to be the question that the Steelers have to ask themselves this offseason is, okay, Do we try to run this back with both guys?
Mm-hmm.
Do we try to just pick? Do we have to pick one or the other? And then which one is it?
And again, I don't love going fishing in this quarterback draft.
I'm not throwing them both back and trying over again. I'm not doing that.
You mean go fish on both of them? Let them both.
I'm not going. Okay, we're just
Yeah,
going to try somebody else. Like we're going to trade for Derek Carr?
Yeah, say
that doesn't appeal to me at all. I mean, sign Jameis Winston? No.
You can get Kirk Cousins for the Russell Wilson deal, but that doesn't excite me at all.
Not at all.
Right. Now, the only one that I have a little bit of interest in is if you said the Vikings will give you McCarthy for your first-round pick. See, I don't know that he has special. I don't know if he has a high enough metachlorine count.
Yeah, he doesn't do that for me. He's
at least his book's
he might
not
be
written.
He might be Mac Jones.
I didn't love him coming out. That's the problem.
He might be Mac Jones. He was a good player with a lot of talent around him.
Now, maybe if you told me, and this is an April conversation because I don't know enough now, but if you said you get Fields for $13 million and Milroe in the first round, well, those are two legit bites of the apple that one of them might be special. But we might be talking about Milroe by then as like the first pick in the draft. That's how this thing works.
Yeah.
I mean,
you just don't know.
Right. I mean, he's an interesting player now, but we might be laughing that he lasted.
If all of a sudden he's available at 10 as Mahomes was, now we can talk. But you don't know how that's going to work.
Right,
so you better have a plan in place going into the draft. Mm-hmm. That can't be your only avenue to get a quarterback.
You're not picking first or second. You don't have that power.
Yeah. So you're going to have to. The Steelers are going to have to make a decision about how they want to proceed moving forward before the draft.
Oh, well before the draft.
That happens in March. The March is free agency.
Yeah, it's happening now, and it's obviously a critical component. But something that's going to be fun is you laid it out well and texted it to me. We'll talk about it for months now. They have a lot of cap space. They have a lot of options.
You can easily create more.
You can easily create more. I mean, there's a lot of stuff they can do. Now, we can fight all day long. Can you still go into Kansas City in the AFC Championship game next year or the year after with Wilson or whomever and a really good roster around them and even get that far? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you can ever beat Superman. I mean, the league is really structured that way right now. Brady was that guy for a long time with different superpowers, but those guys rule the world. I mean, it had to be like going against Jordan. I mean, no fun.
Yeah, no fun at all. Let's get to another break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I'll be back with more right after this. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, they were mulling over some quarterback stuff there in the previous segment. And I went back and looked because a lot of people like to have revisionist history on stuff. And so, the Steelers should have done something to do better than, bend the last couple of years. Now, I will say, in 2018, leading up to the draft, I mocked Lamar Jackson to the Steelers and got crushed for it.
No, you're insane.
Crushed for it.
Right.
I'm an idiot. He'll never be a good quarterback. He's this, he's that.
He's a running back. He's a receiver. Blah, blah, blah. Sure. And they visited with Lamar, from what I understand.
They did.
Him, right.
They liked him. They visited with him. They didn't take him.
Yeah.
And now, why didn't they take Lamar? Well, when I brought that up in that season, a week before the draft, my next to last mock draft, I got crushed for it.
Sure.
Crushed. So, and at that point, you had Roethlisberger coming off of one of his best seasons. Mm-hmm. He hadn't had any elbow issues.
You didn't know that.
He was 35 years old.
Right.
He was 35 years old.
And you're trying to win now.
You're trying to win.
Right.
So I get it. In that regard, it didn't make a lot of sense.
I saw both sides of the argument. I mean, there's no question. And it's easy to say in 2025 you should have done that. But
we also saw how Roethlisberger kind of treated Mason Rudolph, who they did take. Was not super kind to him because he saw him as a threat. Would he have treated Lamar Jackson in the first round the same way? Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you've gotten so many comments in the last 48 hours or whatever, but I've gotten things like, how could the Steelers not have gotten Baker Mayfield? I'm like, well, he wasn't that player then. He's gotten better.
So these are some of the guys.
Quarterbacks I've heard
these are some of the free agents who were available
this year,
over the last few years.
Oh, okay.
2022, the best guy available was Derek Carr. 2023. Geno Smith was available.
But nobody knew he was good yet.
Sort of, but he re-signed with the Seahawks for 3 years and $105 million.
Mm-hmm.
Were you going to pay Geno Smith $105 million over 3 years? Or $110 because maybe he likes it in Seattle.
Mm-hmm. Right, and so you have to outbid them.
And if you remember,
he's a good player.
At that time, he was not,
Yeah, I mean, he's a borderline Pro Bowl 7th best player in the NFC, at that position.
Jimmy Garoppolo in 2023 got $67.5 million over 3 years to leave the San Francisco 49ers for the Raiders.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Is basically out of the league. I know he's in the league, but barely.
Yeah. Then you had Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, who were both available, but both were coming off of
miserable
nothing.
Careers. Right.
They had done nothing in their career.
Yeah, that's like signing Daniel Jones this year.
Yeah.
I mean,
that would be the same.
It's the same thing.
And somebody's probably going to do that looking at this going.
And he might hit.
Well, it worked for Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield.
I think that's a path a lot of teams are going to take because there's not a lot of other options. Where can I get the next Baker and Darnold?
Yeah.
And I don't know you can. I mean, it's not like this happens every year.
We've seen this. You could say the same thing about, Geno Smith. He reclaimed his career. He was okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's 3 guys out of 100 quarterbacks who've been drafted over the last 10 years.
And frankly, if the Steelers would have walked into Baltimore with Darnold, Geno, or Baker yesterday or Saturday, it might have been the same result.
Yeah.
And it doesn't ensure that you're going to beat the superheroes.
Right. This year, your choices were Cousins.
Mm-hmm. He got a lot.
He got way overpaid.
Yeah.
Mayfield, if you remember, re-signed with Tampa before he hit free agency. He got $100 million over 3 years.
Yeah, which is a great deal for them. I mean, that's a win for the Bucs.
So your pivot in that situation for the Steelers was what they did.
Yeah. And the prices they paid were ridiculously great.
Yeah.
There's an asterisk in a good way for the Steelers. I mean, because their quarterback room costs nothing.
Right.
That's part of the equation.
But don't just tell me that, they should have had done this or they should have done that. You got to give me names. Give me somebody who was legitimately on the market or they could have legitimately drafted in those years.
No, there's not much. No, there's not much.
The Kenny Pickett draft was the Kenny Pickett draft.
Yeah.
He was the best quarterback in that draft. And don't give me Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy was the last flipping guy drafted that year for a reason.
Right.
The 49ers didn't know that was going to be the case, or they, A, wouldn't have traded up for Trey Lance, and B, would have taken him well before that, and he's a systems quarterback.
And I'm not sure you're scoring any more points or have any different result with Brock Purdy and
No,
Baltimore
Brock Purdy goes into Baltimore yesterday or Saturday with the Steelers roster and gets his head handed to him.
Oh, yeah. No question. There aren't many answers. I mean, there just aren't. Now, a conversation that is much more geared towards the offseason. I know it's the offseason today, but it's Reaction Monday. So how do you best compete without one of those
We're going to talk about that in the second hour.
Yeah, okay.
But that's what you have to figure out this offseason because what you're doing isn't working. You've lost to those three quarterbacks the last 3 times you've been in the playoffs, all on their field.
Different, right.
All in their stadiums, and that's a part of it.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
You've got to win enough games so that you don't have to go to those places.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to have to, unless you're
to get to your ultimate goal. Yes.
Yeah. Unless you somehow get the number 1 overall seed. At some point, you're going to have to beat one of those guys in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you best do that?
And I remember even like Tannehill, Vrabel, Arthur Smith got the number 1 seed with Derrick Henry, and they played their style and didn't bear that much fruit in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They
won
were a
game.
good team. They had number 1 seed, and they handed it to Henry, and they had a good defense, and still Mahomes is looming out there. You know? Jack the Ripper's still looming around the corner.
So there are ways, I think, that you can do this.
And give yourself a better chance.
Give yourself a chance.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in hour number 2. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with hour number 2 right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, are you ready to do our first mock draft?
Whoa.
Of the
I'm definitely
off-season.
not ready, but let's go.
Well,
that's how you get ready.
Yes, this is one of the ways that we do this.
I
Now,
know the players well enough.
I've only set this thing up to go 4 rounds. We're not going to go deep.
Okay.
But
because by round 4, I'm going to be like, give me the best corner. I don't know who's who yet. Right?
Here's how we're going to do this.
But we got Senior Bowl round.
We got the Senior Bowl coming up in 2 weeks. We got to start getting ready for that. I've been running mock drafts now over the last few weeks as I sit and do different stuff and just to learn the names and start to learn more about the players.
This is embarrassing, but where do the Steelers pick? That should be firmed up by
I'm
now,
on
right?
the ProFootballNetwork.com mock drafter here. They're at 21.
Do we know that? Does tonight matter? Is that I don't think it's
I don't
set
think
in
it
stone
does.
yet. Okay. So they're going to get.
Well, the Rams could still finish, I guess. They were a division winner, though. So
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, they're picking 21 in this particular draft, and so one of the things that I want to do as we head into this is I'm going to assume we've addressed some of our needs in the offseason.
Well, I don't think they're going to go into the draft with 0 quarterbacks under contract.
They're not going to do that
in April, and they're going to have some cap cuts, and as always, there's going to be a lot of movement.
How I would address the offseason, I would sign a veteran wide receiver.
I would too.
To play opposite George Pickens, somebody with some talent.
A pedigree,
history.
Yeah. Now, the current wide receiver free agents to be aren't wonderful, but there are some Devontae Adams that are going to get cut.
There's going to be some dudes cut loose.
And there's the Tyreeks that could get traded. Like, there's always receiver movement.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to assume that we've acquired a veteran wide receiver.
Okay. And to take it a step further, then I think you enter the draft with said veteran, Pickens,
Austin,
Roman Wilson, Austin. Maybe you bring back Skoranek. I mean, he's a free agent, but he wouldn't cost you much. But that's kind of what your receiver room looks like going into draft.
So I've added a pass catcher.
Okay, I'll put the stamp of approval on that.
I'm going to assume that maybe we need a running back.
Oh, I think they'll need a running back.
I think
that's a draft need.
Yeah, I think you draft that.
Great draft for running back. We can't say that enough.
Can't say that enough. I'm going to assume that they've got a quarterback who is a starting caliber quarterback on the draft or on the roster. Beyond that, I don't know.
I don't know what your exact words were, but you said something last hour about I'm not flushing Fields and Wilson.
No.
Let's say one of those two.
One of the
rosters.
two, ideally both, are back in a Steelers uniform.
There's somebody you can start week 1.
Yes.
I mean, it's the typical Kevin Colbert move we've always talked about. I mean, you're going to have a quarterback that can start week 1 for you at a minimum.
Yes.
And probably have somebody else under contract. You probably just don't have one quarterback under. It might be Allen. It might be a third string guy, but whatever.
Yeah. So we're working here off the ProFootballNetwork.com.
And I think they'll have other needs filled other than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a really good chance in outside corner.
Or a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
There's all different ways you can go. So the first picks here. Shedeur Sanders goes to the Titans. Cameron Ward to the Browns.
Okay.
Travis Hunter goes to the Giants. Abdul Carter to the Patriots. Malachi Starks to the Jaguars. Mason Graham to the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah.
Michael Williams, the edge rusher out of Georgia, goes to the Jets. James Pierce, the edge rusher out of Carolina, goes to the I'm doing this backwards here. James Pierce, the edge rusher out of Tennessee, goes to Carolina.
Okay.
Nick Scourton, edge rusher from Texas A&M, goes to the Saints.
Edge rusher plus.
A lot of defensive players there in the top 10.
Yeah.
Siobhan Ravel, the cornerback out of East Carolina, goes to Chicago. Luther Burden at 11 to San Francisco.
That's first receiver?
That's first receiver at 11. Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle from Texas, goes to the Cowboys. Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State, goes to Miami. Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU, goes to the Colts. Tatoria McMillan goes to the Atlanta Falcons at 15, wide receiver out of Arizona. At 16, Tyler Booker, guard from Alabama, goes to the Cardinals. Ashton Genty, running back from Boise, goes to Cincinnati. Just
I don't know if I'd see that fit with considering their needs, but fine.
Cameron Williams, offensive tackle from Texas, goes to Seattle. Emeka Ibuka, the wide receiver from Ohio State, goes at 19 to Tampa. Jalen Walker, the linebacker out of Georgia, goes at 20 to Denver.
Okay. So the Steelers have not done anything at corner, hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
Right? They basically have only added a receiver and kept a quarterback. We're just going to go with that. And obviously we know there's going to be more than that.
Yeah.
My top priorities would be, I want a Joey Porter clone. I want a big, physical, beat you up at the line of scrimmage, man-to-man corner. I want Vita Vea, Haloti Ngata. Not Casey Hampton, but I want a big, middle-of-the-presence athlete that makes Benton my Ogunjobi, who I think will probably be released, frankly. And any offensive playmaker would be welcome as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, it's our first one. I don't know if we're taking – would we take Milroe here? I think we just don't go down that road.
Not yet, no.
I think we don't address quarterback in the first round because it kind of kills the drill.
Right.
You know?
Well, there is somebody out there in this particular mock draft who fits the bill as a player who might be a very, very good pro. Can't believe he's actually still available, but we've only seen one cornerback taken thus far, and that would be Siobhan Revell, the cornerback out of East Carolina. He's huge.
He's huge, yeah. I think he missed some time this year, but he looks like Porter.
He's a monster, yeah.
Yeah.
But Will Johnson from Michigan.
But the Michigan dude's not picked yet.
Will Johnson from Michigan is there. Speaking of guys who are huge, he's 6'2", 202.
And very much looked like a top 5 type of pick. I don't know what the warts are other than injury since they won the national title and he was one of the best players in the country, but he's exactly what I want.
Come to Papa.
Yeah.
It happened with Heath Miller. Again, you get a guy with an injury, maybe he doesn't work out in the offseason. I'm watching the tape. I'm watching last year's tape. All right. That's
Yeah.
That's a guy who can come in and play right away, make an impact.
And Trice is then your 3. I mean, like in case of injury, he's still going to get time. Maybe one of these guys can move the slot here and there. I'm not even worried about the slot this time. Just give me the things that are hard to find. Big, badass man corners.
Yeah. The other guy's still available. Colson Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hate
adding playmakers.
I don't hate that either. And I know people go, well, you got Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but I've already added a veteran wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I got George Pickens.
And this veteran wide receiver is not 5'8".
No.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But if I can go get a second tight end, another pass I'm looking just for pass catchers, guys who will score touchdowns.
Yeah.
Guys who score touchdowns or prevent touchdowns. And none of the wide receivers beyond those top 3 guys am I super excited about.
Yeah, what I've known, I'm not even sure Abuka I would run to the podium for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's more of a slot.
Yeah.
So
like hypothetically, if the Penn State tight end's there, you'd be pretty interested.
He's a pass catcher.
Yeah.
He's not Pat Freiermuth.
We know how much 12 and 13 they play.
Yeah. And people might say, well, you can't do. Look at the Ravens offense.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad.
And we had this
They play a lot of 2 tight ends. Look at what the Patriots did with 2 tight ends a decade ago.
I mean, look how many snaps Pruitt played. And if I can replace them with a much more talented, dynamic pass catcher, I mean, you're splitting Freiermuth out wide.
I don't care if he has a TE next to his name or a WR. I don't care.
Right.
Does he catch the ball? Does he score touchdowns?
Yeah. Does he make
Doesn't
plays?
bother me. Benjamin Morrison, the cornerback out of Notre Dame, is still there.
Okay.
He's a good player.
Yeah. Please watch him next Monday.
He's hurt. Yeah. You got some defensive tackles: Derek Harmon from Oregon, the safety from South Carolina, Nick Emewari, Amorian Hampton, the running back out of North Carolina.
Another playmaker, right?
And
He's
I know
player,
people say, "Oh, you don't take running backs in the first round." That guy's special.
Mm-hmm.
And if the guy is special, I don't care what position he plays.
It's an awesome running back draft. Again, subject to change my opinion because I have not done a ton of homework. There looks like there's 2 special backs, though.
Yeah, the 2017 draft was loaded with running backs. If you look back at that, there were 10 guys in that draft, I think, who had 1,000-yard seasons in their career.
That's a McCaffrey.
Nobody is saying that Christian McCaffrey at 3 in that draft was a bad pick.
Agreed.
Like if it's a guy that both runs and catches the ball well, okay. Does he change your offense? Yeah.
The offense needs to change.
Hampton would change your offense. It's
a strong case.
He is a very good player. You got Tyleik Williams, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State. Again,
more nose-ish. Yeah.
Fills a need. Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss.
Really appealing.
Fills a need. There's some guys there. But in this particular draft, I think you take Will Johnson.
Yeah. From what I know about all these dudes, again, we do this every year. A month from now, we might laugh at this mock. Like, look what we thought then. We just don't know yet. But I think the way that sets up, it's exactly what I want.
Yeah. And people might say, well, another defensive player. You got to go offense. Well, we're assuming that they've added a stud wide receiver or a good wide receiver.
Quality starting or better, right.
To play opposite.
They spent money on a receiver.
Yeah. And, who might that be? Well, I mean, Chris Godwin would certainly look good. Maybe Christian Kirk gets cut loose this offseason. They've got their top 7 wide receivers in Jacksonville are all back. They're not going to keep all 7.
No.
You got a new coaching staff coming in,
Yeah. A quality starter.
Yeah.
Minimum.
I didn't even mention our trade offers there, but we would run to the podium to take.
Yeah, and say in this instance, I don't think we need to be trading and stuff.
No, I don't think so either.
Rounding out a roster.
Yeah, we're just first try with this whole thing. All right.
Yeah, take the corner.
We're up at 52. The top players available. Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle out of Michigan.
He would be a really, really good fit.
He would be a nice fit, yes.
And they had room together.
There you go.
That's important.
National champions. You're adding to that pedigree.
Right.
This guy's interesting. Running back Caleb Johnson out of Iowa.
Yeah, he fits the mold too.
He is a very
bruiser
good,
and really, really good too.
Ariante Ursary, the offensive tackle out of Minnesota. JT Tuimololo. He doesn't really fit.
No, he's probably a 4-3 DN. Talking about the Ohio State too.
Yeah. Quinn Ewers, quarterback out of Texas.
Doesn't really excite me.
I'm just going to go Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, the quarterback there. Isaiah Bond, the wide receiver out of Texas, but we've already
fast but small.
Yeah, small,
thinner, right? Yeah.
Quinshawn Judkins, a running back out of Ohio State.
I probably at this second prefer the other back, but it's nice to know those guys are there.
Those guys are available.
Yeah.
Jalen Royals, a wide receiver out of Utah State, is an interesting guy for me.
Yeah.
He was, again, missed a large portion of this season. 6 foot 205, really good route runner, and that's something that they've really liked over the years. Was very, very good last year. I think he played the first 4 games this year. I think he had like 30 catches in the first 4 games this year, and then had a foot injury. So just somebody to keep an eye on there from Utah State, Jalen Royals.
Yeah. He seems like their type of guy.
Yeah. I think in this situation, though, you take Kenneth Grant.
Me too. Now, I wouldn't have thought first 2 picks on defense, but boy, this is going to be
2 butt kickers.
And you're going to be sick. Folks are going to be sick of me saying this, but I think one of your paths to beating the Mahomeses of the world is having the best defense in the league and leading the league in sacks, but more importantly, leading the league in quarterback hits. And I don't want TJ getting doubled and tripled anymore.
Right.
And if I have corners, I'm bringing 6. And Burrow's getting hit, and he's going to beat me once in a while, and that's fine. But he might not finish the game either.
Remember, the idea when we went into this is you're not going to be able to get a transitional or a quarterback, transcendent quarterback. You're not.
No.
So how's the best way to combat that? Well,
I mean, you have the pass rushers. You need to be the best pass rusher. I want Blitzburg back.
Yeah.
But the only way I can do that is with another corner.
So we've taken cornerback, defensive tackle.
Nose-ish. I mean, by the way, people don't know who he is. He's a big-bodied guy.
Nose-ish who can still rush the passer.
Yeah.
Despite
Power
being
player.
Yeah. Okay, we're cruising here. That's our first 2 picks. We've gotten really big and physical on defense here, even more so. All right, we're coming up here with our 3rd pick. It's at 83.
I don't know how we'd go defense here.
I don't know that it can be.
Right. The only other defensive spot that I'd even consider is safety that can play the slot or a Sainer Still type slot, but I think this has to be offense.
Yeah. So the top players available who are offensive players. Well, Kyron Lacey is the first guy on there, but he just got arrested for running somebody over or wrecking his car and killing somebody, so that's not going to happen.
That's not draft him.
From LSU. Ricky White, wide receiver out of UNLV. All right. Elijah Arojo, the tight end from Miami. Interesting player, but I don't know that that's the way we want to go. Yeah. When he has Cam Ward throwing him the ball against college football players. I mean, I think he's good.
The ACC, sure.
I don't know.
I like your thoughts on tight ends, but my hunch is if you're going to go tight end in the draft, you better go big or go home.
Yeah.
Does that guy see the field for the Steelers that much? Probably not his rookie year.
Right.
Where the Penn State dude would.
This almost has to be a running back at this point.
Soon, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, at a minimum.
So your top running backs available are Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State.
He was at the top of the list a year ago and apparently had a rough year.
DJ Giddens from K-State.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Mononage from Rutgers. Phil Maffa from Clemson. Raheem Sanders from South Carolina. Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. Cam Scatabo from Arizona State.
Mm-hmm.
Devin Neal from Kansas. Taj Brooks from Texas Tech. You got Trevor Etienne from Georgia.
What's crazy is I think something we'll agree on is you're going to have to be big enough to ride the ride to be a running back.
Without a doubt.
I'm not taking a 200-pounder. He doesn't have to be Najee, but he better be close in terms of dimensions, size, physicality, AFC Northness. So I don't know what the magic number is, but I would say 220 or heavier, give or take.
Well, Ollie Gordon's 6'2", 225.
Mm-hmm. And from what I don't know these players well enough, but you listed 8 of them. I bet several of them fit the bill.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not all scat back little dudes.
Giddens from K-State is 6'1", 212.
Mm-hmm.
McGonaghy is 5'9", 209. That's a little
thickly built, though. I mean,
thickly built.
Again, I have to know the players better, but they better be physical pile movers.
Yeah. Sampson from they don't have a height and weight listed here. Sampson from Tennessee, though. I think he's like 215-ish. He's very interesting to me.
Yeah.
I think he's got. Here's the other thing that I want from my running back: vision. Vision.
Yeah. Especially if you're going to be a heavy zone team. That's a vision thing. Gap runs, you hit the B gap no matter what. Zone, it's use your vision. Yeah. I think that's a very high on the list component.
That's to me why Scatabo is very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's got great contact balance and vision.
Okay. Now, to play devil's advocate, I got to think somebody's there around from now.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying we don't take a running back here, but this is a deep running back draft. And this is another thing I haven't mentioned to you, too, but it wouldn't shock me at all if the Steelers add 2. Take one in the 3rd or 4th round, and then either spend money on undrafted free agent or your 7th round picks that back with a 5th round grade. And I say that because Mel Kiper, who's been doing this a long time, he said, I got 35 backs with a gradable, a draftable grade on them. Well, 35 backs aren't getting drafted by 32 teams.
Well, here's so where it gets a little interesting now. We talked about the quarterback class and how it's not great at the top, but I do think there are some guys in the middle rounds who fit the bill in terms of what you're looking for, in terms of guys who have a lot of starts under their belt or, have some athletic traits that you could possibly work with that could be long-term starters down the road.
Okay.
So the guy's still available here. Will Howard from Ohio State.
Interesting.
Curtis Rourke from Indiana.
Okay.
Found out that he played the entire season with a torn ACL and played well for Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a MAC guy that they should know plenty about him. Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. He has a ton of starts, but he's tiny.
And little. I don't love little.
Yeah. Kyle McCord from Syracuse.
Okay.
Pure pocket passer with, again, a ton of starts under his belt.
Mm-hmm. Are you looking, if you were to take one of those quarterbacks or even another, are you swinging for the fences that one of them might be a star, or are you looking at one like they'll be a solid backup for 10 years?
I'm looking for a star.
Okay.
I'm looking for somebody who might be my starter for the next 10 years
Yeah.
after a year.
And be the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I agree. I don't want to take Mason Rudolph in the third
Yeah.
round. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Any of those guys excite you at all?
Not a ton. The Ohio State kid sort of did. The first two you mentioned were
Howard and Rourke?
were of interest. I wouldn't mind taking a tackle either.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the playmakers are in need, but a project tackle that might be your swing guy. I think one more O lineman is going to be needed in some way, shape, or form.
Well, the best guys available there are Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. North Dakota State tackles scream project tackles.
Exactly, and they often hit.
Ernest Green from Georgia, Blake Miller from Clemson, Anjay Cornelius from Oregon, Anthony Belton from NC State, Charles Grant from William and Mary.
Didn't we just draft a Charles Grant?
We did.
But those type of guys certainly interest me. Coach them up. Do we know if Tanu's a tackle? I mean, maybe he's a guard someday.
I think he is.
I think he is too.
Yeah.
But another tackle doesn't break my heart just with the extra pick. I'm not saying on the table for any of those dudes, but I think that's something you can never be short on. You want to go with the running back?
Got your choice. Who do you like of that group?
I don't know them well enough. Somebody with size and physicality.
There's a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. You want to take the Arizona State dude? Pretty easy to root for.
Pretty easy to root for, and
I mean, he brings a lot of attitude and a lot of physicality, and
he would be an instant star in Pittsburgh.
Well, there'd be a lot of jerseys walking around.
There'd be a lot of Scatabo. He'll be that wherever he goes.
Wherever he goes,
Because of the style that he plays. But I think he's a kind of exactly what they're looking for.
I know. I was listening to the PFF dude, Trevor, who joined us.
Yeah.
And he was doing the running back breakdown. He's like, I'm watching Scatabo, and I'm watching him, and I'm going, is this guy just try harder than everybody else? Is that why he's good? and he meant it as a negative. Like, that's not going to work in the NFL. And he's like, then I watched like 5 games, and it's going to work in the NFL.
Yeah. You know who loves Scatabo? Max Starks loves Scatabo.
Arizona connection.
He had done some games,
Mm-hmm.
some Arizona State games, and on the radio, and I asked him about Scatabo. He was, well, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, him and Warren's a nice backfield.
You got a lot of attitude.
Yeah, right.
Not that Najee doesn't have. Najee has the attitude.
No question.
He is a hard-ass runner.
But he might be on another team at this point.
Yeah. All right.
Let's take Scatabo.
We took Scatabo. So now we're up at 123.
Okay.
Any of those quarterbacks still available? Curtis Rourke is still there. Kyle McCord is still there.
I mean, that's better than Allen. I mean, if that's your 3, might be your 2. I'm talking about on opening day. It's not going to be your 1.
The thing to me about Rourke, he elevated a program that
huge feather in
had no business being in the college football playoffs this year.
Yeah.
And it was because of him.
I mean, like Ritter did that with Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Now, he didn't work out in the pros, but that's hard to do.
It's really hard to do.
Yeah, and there's a lot of instances of that. I don't have a problem with that.
Now,
is there a receiver of interest?
The other guys available right now. Ollie Gordon is still there.
Maybe he's still a running back.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there would have been backs we like in this spot.
Shamar Turner, the defensive tackle out of Texas A&M.
We took one of them too.
Malachi Moore, safety out of Alabama. Luke Leachy, the tight end out of Iowa. Can never go wrong taking a tight end from Iowa.
His dad was a Pro Bowl offensive tackle, too,
yeah.
Jim Lachey.
Yeah. 6'6", 253.
You could convince me of a tight end or a safety.
I'm not seeing a lot of
receivers.
The receivers are pretty well picked over here at this point.
You said this, and it seems like it's true. Doesn't seem as deep a receiver class.
No, I don't.
Or as top heavy.
Yeah,
it's an okay receiver class. It's always going to be.
Yeah, I just don't see anything there. I don't know if Malachi Moore out of at Bama has any slot capability.
And he doesn't have to. I mean,
right.
Minka can play slot or,
Because the other thing is DeMonte KZ. Now, you do have the draft pick from last year, the Texas kid coming back.
Oh, yeah.
Missed the entire his rookie season. But he's been there the entire year in that locker room learning. So maybe you have some high hopes.
You really have 4 draft picks that are going to be rookies next year.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't hurt.
That's intriguing, right. I know they like Logan Lee, too, by the way.
Yeah. So, to me, I think you go quarterback or you take the tight end. Or we look at that.
Lachey.
We look back at that tackle.
The little I know about Lachey, I like him. He went to Iowa State, and his dad's a Pro Bowl left tackle.
Your tackles are Austin Barber from Florida, Marcus Mabau from Purdue, Jack Nelson from Wisconsin, J.C. Davis from Illinois.
Again, I don't know this class for crap, but I know draft after draft, if you don't take a tackle now, you might as well not.
Yeah.
I mean, like they don't. Day 3 tackles aren't worth your time. I mean, they're dried up.
Yeah, it's gotten. I mean, those guys aren't even ranked high on the list at this point. You'd be reaching basically for that.
I like any of those picks: Rourke, Lachey, or best tackle available.
Let's take Lachey.
Okay.
We like
physical.
We like to play with a lot of tight ends on the field. I don't have to go with another retread there. I can get another young guy in the room.
I'd say it's not an expensive room at all. I'm fine with that.
And
are we done?
That does it for the draft. So we came out of that with Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan. Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. Cam Scatabo, running back from Arizona State, and tight end Luke Leachy from Iowa.
It's fine by me for test run number 1.
We got a lot to talk through there as well.
Yeah.
Which is why we do this.
That's why we do it, right.
Learn the names and discuss the...
how the puzzle starts to fit together. And
absolutely.
Usually this time of year, the puzzle's clunky, but they also would have added more in free agency than just a receiver and brought back a quarterback.
Yeah, they have about just over $50 million in cap space as we sit here now. They can easily create enough cap space to get up over $80 million pretty easily.
Which I bet they will.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. Let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. We will talk more about the season in general and where the Steelers go after this when we come back on The Drive. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And, of course, you can hear The Drive every Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m., including, well, we're going to run this into the offseason here. We're going to go at least through the start of free agency. And, heck, by the time we get to free agency, it's almost draft time.
Right.
Then it's OTAs. We're back on the air on a regular basis. There's no time off.
Time off is... in quotes.
Yeah.
There's not much. There's a lot going on. And it's a game tonight. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on.
And we will talk about that game tonight in our final segment today. But
there's coaching hires today, coaching fire. I mean, all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's always something going on.
So today was kind of a locker clean-out day at the Steelers facility and players were available. And T.J. Watt spoke. And one of the things that he mentioned, he's like, first of all, he says, look, somebody asked him if hey, do you foresee yourself being a Steeler? And he says, I want to be here my entire career. I want to be part of the solution to what we do. I want to help Cam Hayward get to where he needs to go. And I thought he was very, very good with that. And so, how do you do that? What would be different? And he said, you know what? I could be more open to moving around on defense.
Okay.
He said, I've kind of balked at that in years past because he likes to rush from that left side better.
Sure.
And I think part of it, too, is that he doesn't want to feel like he's above the other, like, I got to flip sides with Alex here because I want to get this rush. Well, Highsmith's good on the other side as well.
Yeah.
Or I got to do this.
Flip, except TJ doesn't want to.
Yeah,
right.
That kind of stuff.
Right. If he's a team guy, he always is. Right.
He said, but
that's interesting.
But it did make it very easy lining up almost strictly on the left side for teams to take him out of the game.
Absolutely. And it's just become such a trend that you move guys around. I mean, that's what the league is doing. The guys I think are the best are Crosby, Bosa, Parsons, Garrett. They don't line up in one spot.
But one of the things that those guys have, and to Watt's point, they don't have the second guy.
Right.
They're the guy.
Hendrickson's like the only one that always aligns to the right.
Yeah.
And he still is productive. Good for him. And as is TJ. But I think it would free him up more, 100%.
Yeah. And it would make them more difficult to scheme against.
You just know where he's going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm going to keep a tight end to the right, I'm going to keep a running back to the right. I know what I'm getting. Right.
And I would muddle huddle it a little bit more. Hey, TJ, you don't line up until there's 10 seconds left on the clock, and then let them try to adjust to where you're at.
And just force their hand a little bit more, play fast, pre-snap, all that kind of
It's
stuff.
almost a Troy Polamalu-like thing. And where's he at? Well, he's over here. Well, when the ball snapped, he's over there.
Yeah.
It just makes it so hard on the offense if you move that guy around.
One more thing to think about for the offense.
And if you get, let's say over the course of the season, you do that, he's moving around more, and you force 3 timeouts and 2 false starts, or 3 timeouts and the play clock runs out because they didn't get that done in time.
I mean, it might sound like nothing, but if you force 3 more one-on-one blocks for TJ Watt a game, that's only 36, or that's not 36. That's more than that. 3 times. I don't know why I thought it was a 12-game season in 1972. But still, I mean, that's going to result in a lot of production. I mean, he has an unbelievably difficult road to the quarterback. And if you can make it any easier, to be honest, that's why I'm stressing so much on this man corners. Because if you bring 6, he's going to be against a back once in a while. You don't have to blitz to rush the passer. This group doesn't. It's so good. But if I can, no matter what I can do to get him one-on-ones, it's going to result in good stuff.
Yeah.
I just know that.
Yeah. And so, that's one thing that the Steelers can do moving forward to be better in these kind of situations.
Right.
Put your best players in positions to make plays.
And I don't think he ever said, no, I'll never do it. But he was really comfortable in one spot, and they moved him there for a reason. It might be time to look into that.
And prior to this season, he had been really, really good. And he was good this season.
Right,
Let's not pretend that he wasn't.
No, I don't think he's declining.
But it just made him it made him too easy. And yes, offenses had to designate 2 or 3 players to doing it.
Right. So he had immense value even if he wasn't swatting passes or getting sacks.
But I think it could be better if you start moving him around a little bit.
Absolutely. And some of it's even, I don't know, Eagles are a great example. They have 2 really good tackles. But maybe Highsmith's better against Lane than he is Mulata. You know what I mean? It's the other guy involved too. Or maybe they're a bad example because they have 2 really good tackles, but there's a right tackle doing a decent job against Watt, who's a really good player. But his stylistically, I'm not explaining this well. Highsmith and Watt are different players. Maybe their strength would work out better against the right tackle as opposed to the left tackle.
What's
if you're
going on?
Highsmith, look out.
Yeah.
I mean, Bud Dupree was a power rusher. Well, maybe the right tackle doesn't deal with power rushers and you flop them in those instances. You know what I'm saying? Just play the strengths.
Play the strengths, make yourself more difficult to defend and or scheme against. And I think that goes a long way because it allows you to just be more, as Mike Tomlin likes to say, thoughtfully non-rhythmic. Exactly.
I think the defense got way too rhythmic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that made it easier to beat.
The talent's there, but you need to put those guys in better positions.
Yeah, yeah. Again, we mentioned getting more pass catchers, more guys who catch the football. And I think that's going to be the emphasis, I think, of the entire offseason. Getting this offense to a point where I don't care who the quarterback is, you got to have more pass catchers.
More playmaking receivers of any sort. Yeah, I think they're lacking. I think they would be the first to tell you they're lacking. I think they tried to address it. It didn't all work out brilliantly, and I'm not sure that trading for Ayuk would have mattered or any of those things, but I think that they're not done, or I don't think it's an organizational philosophy of, we're okay there. We'll just cut corners at pass catcher. I think this offseason will be very different that way.
Yeah, I think so as well. And again, I think that has to be a veteran wide receiver. Not just because you can't guess what you're going to get in the draft and whether that guy's going to make an immediate impact. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Right.
I don't want to guess.
It's a good place to shop, but it's not foolproof.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, think of where we were at last year on Roman Wilson after the draft. Well, okay, he'll come in and catch 50 passes.
Right.
Then he didn't.
And he didn't. Right.
Yeah, because he was, you just don't know.
Yeah.
You're getting a complete unknown in many cases.
Patriots took Polk early. He looked like a really safe double.
It's 16 catches all year.
Struggled.
Yeah.
Right.
The kid for who did I see yesterday? Who the heck played yesterday? Now I'm trying to remember.
Tampa, McMillan.
McMillan
Washington.
was okay.
McMillan's been good.
Yeah, there was
a lot of these guys.
There was another rookie
that
really didn't do. I'm trying to think of one of those games that I saw.
I mean, Keon Coleman hasn't lit the world on fire.
Yeah,
there's been a couple of them.
He was a first-round pick.
Pearsall hadn't lit the world on fire. He was a first-round pick. Worthy hasn't lit the world on fire. He was a first-round pick. I don't think those teams are unhappy with them. I mean, it's shopping on day 1 and 2. You'll get receivers, but I think they need an instant fix.
Yeah, you need somebody that can come in and make an impact, not just on the field.
And I'd say also some leadership too.
But I want a veteran guy in that wide receiver room, and it has to be somebody with some gravitas, somebody who's done some stuff in the league,
been to a Pro Bowl, caught 100 passes, whatever. This
is how you do this stuff.
Yep.
And it's George Pickens on the football field, and he's not been a problem off the field. I think there's a misnomer.
There's a misconception. He's
not
getting arrested and
Right. Yeah, he's not doing bad stuff off the field. He's doing what he needs. He's just George. Don't do. We don't need.
There's still volatility.
There's still volatility there that. Somebody to talk him down off the ledge at times.
Like Hayward Bay provided a lot of that.
Yeah.
Now, he wasn't a premier 1 or 2 receiver, but he had value behind the scenes, too. I was a former first-round pick, came in the league, thought I could light the world on fire, had to reinvent myself as a gunner, special teamer. Listen to me, kiddo. I might be able to teach you a thing or two.
Right.
Let alone if it's someone that's a high-end player.
Yeah. So I think that's a big part of this as well.
It's going to be easier said than done. There's a lot of teams that could use receivers that are going to be competing. It's easy just to say, oh, they'll sign Chris Godwin. Well, the Patriots and Chargers might have something to say about
some
that.
Other teams.
Right, yeah.
I don't think they're going to go out and, blow the entire – let's go get T. Higgins.
Yeah.
I know
I'm thinking more and more he's going to stay in Cincy, too.
Everybody, you got to go get T. Higgins. It's going to be $30+ million. And
it'd be a wonderful addition.
Yeah.
You also got to beat the Patriots and Chargers and other teams on them.
Everybody else feels the same way.
Cincy might just franchise them again. They could.
I don't think that would be the right move for them.
Right.
They could. So, anyways,
it's easy to aim big in free agency in January.
Yes.
Oh, let's just look at the list. Who's the top 2?
Take both of those guys. Yeah.
Some of them don't even hit free agency.
We'll take the top wide receiver. We'll take the top running back. We'll do the
and Byron Murphy's the best corner. We get him too.
I understand it works that way in Madden.
Yeah.
So everybody thinks that's the way it works. It's not.
31 other teams thinking the same thing.
Yeah. And the player has to want to. Let's say he's been a West Coast guy his entire life. Maybe he doesn't want to move to the East Coast.
Sure. Or he doesn't like your scheme or whatever it is, right?
Where he's, I really like it. My wife really likes it where I'm at. I'll take less money to stay here. My kids, I want to go back home. I want to go back to where I grew up at.
The team that has them doesn't plan on letting them go.
There's always that too.
A couple of these guys get signed before it even happens.
Yeah.
Now there also will be players that are cut.
Yes.
That aren't on the list yet.
So all that stuff was still going to happen here, but I just thought that was interesting that Watt said that today.
Yeah, it's great. I didn't know that.
We'll see where that continues to develop here as the off-season goes on. He is Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Of course, you can also get The Drive on the Steelers mobile app and watch our show on YouTube as well. We always appreciate that. We'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And, Matt, we got a couple of tweets here from people. First of all, Michael Odesso.
Big fan. He's a good dude, yeah.
Yeah, retweeted that the Steelers are actually locked in at number 21.
Okay, that's done no matter what happens.
That's done.
Okay.
So it's Tampa Bay, then Denver, and Pittsburgh.
Okay, of the eliminated playoff teams.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then Steelers Retro asks, listening to today's drive, is corner more of a need in the draft than a dynamic offensive playmaker?
I think it's a conversation. I really do.
That's
just
when we talked about that, we said, okay, we're already assuming that we've gone out and signed a wide receiver.
Right,
somebody.
right. Yeah. And they may have signed a corner, too. I mean, the two spots that quarterback aside, two spots I'd consider spending money on a reasonably big ticket item. Maybe not Higgins or Deion Sanders. I mean, is corner and receiver. Yeah, I mean, I think that those are be lovely to knock out one or both before the draft of I really like this new addition.
Yeah.
I don't know which is bigger. I would probably say receiver, just in terms of what you have on the roster. But at the moment, Corey Trice is your number 2, who I'm kind of excited about, but I'm not trusting. And frankly, I think the missing component of playing defense schematically the way you want to is a second man-to-man corner.
A second man-to-man corner, and I wouldn't mind a guy, even if he is a guy that lines up outside in your base defense and then bumps inside in your...
Is capable, like a Marlon Humphrey type of player, right, that can do both. That would be great, especially if you're going to spend money on one.
Right.
Right. No, I think that's in the cards or should be strongly considered.
Yeah. Looking at the news of the day.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a little bit there because, Mike McCarthy out in Dallas.
Strangely, I can't think of a situation where he's a true free agent. It's not we fired you, we didn't pick up your money.
His contract runs out tomorrow.
Right. They're just not going to extend him. It sounds like they want to hit him with the franchise tag, keep him on a 1-year deal, a 2-year deal. And he's like, no,
Understandably, he wants...
I've won a lot of games this league.
Yeah.
I want a long-term contract. Because for people that don't know, 99% of the time when a coach gets fired, they're getting paid next year.
Right.
Yeah, they can go to the beach and still get a check or whatever, and they can do whatever they want.
Cliff Kingsbury's still getting paid by Arizona to be the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, right. McCarthy is a free agent. Here's a contract offer. And I kind of thought it's a bit of a Dallas trend. They're a little late to sign their premier spots.
They like to wait.
They were late on Dak. They were late on Lamb. And they were late on this, whether they wanted to bring him back or not.
Yeah, absolutely. The Eagles lost linebacker Nakobe Dean for the rest of the playoffs in that win yesterday.
Into next year, it sounds like, too.
Yeah, well, you tearing it.
Late injuries.
Yeah,
right?
you have an injury like that at this point in the year. It's usually the way
Maybe
it goes.
I'm missing, but did any of the other teams that advanced lose anybody of note? Not that I'm aware of. Like big injuries to teams that are playing.
Yeah, I can't think of any that.
I don't think the Ravens got hit with anybody. I don't remember the Bills getting hit hard, but Dean's a big loss.
Yeah, it's a huge one. Speaking of those kind of injuries, I had a chance to talk to Troy Falatanu today.
Oh, really?
And he was chomping at the bit. He is fired up. He said he's going to be ready for OTAs.
Awesome.
Really looking forward to getting back to playing football because
that's
he hasn't gotten to do it much this year.
Maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves, but do you think he's now a left tackle?
He was asked about that, and he said he's under. They haven't talked.
That
stuff yet. He said he's going into this assuming that he's going to be working at right tackle, which is where he was working as a rookie.
Okay. I mean, no one's told him otherwise.
Right, and that stuff wouldn't have taken place yet.
No, it's too early for that.
Exit interviews and everything.
I figured if he got interviewed, someone had to ask something along those lines. But there you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. He's ready to rock.
And Mike Vrabel today introduced as the new head coach of the New England Patriots. Shocking. Well, nobody.
I mean, he's a good football coach. He's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
A lot of work to do.
Not going to be easy. We got a game tonight, Matt.
Yeah.
Who you like?
I think the Vikes. I expect this one to be close, though. I think this could be a lot like Bucks, Commanders, kind of down to the wire. But I'm not willing to say, boy, the Vikes got exposed by the Lions or Darnold turned into a pumpkin all of a sudden. I still think they're the better team. And I don't know if this influenced the Chargers, but I've got to think the fires and the tragedies going on in their home city can't be good for preparing for games.
I will say this. If you look at the Vikings' schedule this year, when they've played a good quarterback, when they've played a true upper-class quarterback, not been good. Their losses this year came against Detroit.
Yeah.
the Rams, 30-20.
I say they have played this game already.
Everybody forgets about that one. And then Detroit again.
Yeah.
If you look at the rest of their schedule, they played the
Cerebral,
Giants.
carve-you-up type quarterbacks, too.
The Giants. Okay, not that.
No.
San Francisco.
Not really, right.
Houston. Well, we saw that.
Yeah, they were struggling with other stuff, right?
Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
The Jets. Then you had the Detroit, L.A., Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Tennessee, Chicago, Arizona, Atlanta, Chicago, Seattle, Green Bay, Detroit. Like, their schedule was not all that
bad. I think they were
rough.
Were they a last-place team? No.
No, Chicago was.
Right.
But
no, Chicago wasn't. Adunze went. Did Adunze or McCarthy go first? Because their first pick was Carolina's.
Maybe they were last. I can't remember.
But anyways, they didn't have a difficult schedule.
Yeah.
But I do think it's interesting that Goff and Stafford are the ones that beat them, because I really like Flores as a coordinator.
Blitz like crazy.
And he is aggressive to no end. But those dudes that have been around the block that just sit back there and pick you apart from the pocket can pick that apart. Because they're not the most talented defense in the league.
No, they aren't. They just come and come and come.
And they do weird things.
So it wouldn't surprise me if the Rams actually won that football game.
It wouldn't either, right.
Yeah. I mean, Stafford has a huge game. He's got all the weapons out there with him.
Yeah.
Puka Nacua goes crazy.
I don't love the Vikings O-line either, and that young defensive front could cause problems.
Yeah, should be
a good game. They also don't
game.
have a great Justin Jefferson answer either.
Yeah, should be a great game.
No, I'm psyched about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But, we got a Mike Tomlin press conference at 12:30 on Tuesday. That will be his season-ending wrap-up, so we'll have some maybe something to talk about coming out of that.
Those are usually pretty extensive, huh?
Yeah, it'll be a long talk. And then we won't hear from Mike Tomlin again until we talk to him at the owners' meetings in March.
Yeah, okay. But that'll be probably what we lead off with tomorrow, right?
Absolutely. We'll have plenty to talk about coming out of that, but that's going to do it for our show today. For my partner, Matt Williamson, for Justin Miller here on site running the Justin Miller Hotline and the soundboard, and for Tyler Vittmeyer making sure our video gets out there on the YouTube, I'm Dale Lolley. We appreciate you listening to this edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.